Hey guys, Mr. McSparron here. So I'm sitting here in my kitchen. We're making a new video for today. This is the first time I'm using this new app on my iPad, so hopefully it turns out well. Look at that beautiful kitchen. You see the artwork by my daughter. You guys know how cool she is. Oh man, it's all over the place. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to take notes. Hopefully it ends up looking good, but you know, bear with me. If this one sucks, they'll get better in the future, I promise. Okay, so today's notes are all about a thing that we're going to call unit conversion. Now, I know that the word unit conversion sounds like maybe it's kind of a big confusing thing, but really it's not bad at all. So all unit conversion does is it takes a number that has one unit and it changes it into a number that's in a different unit. Okay, so you're going to notice that one new thing with this app is that you're not always going to see me writing. Sometimes the writing will just appear because I can pause when I'm recording. So take a second and pause if you need to get to record this. But we're going to go to a new slide for some examples. So here are some examples of things that we could use unit conversion for. We could use unit conversion for something simple like changing hours into minutes. We could also do something like change kilometers into meters. We could even do something a little bit more complicated with multiple units, like change kilometers per hour into feet per second. So before I get started with teaching you guys about the steps of unit conversion, it's really important that you guys learn a definition of a new term, and that term is going to be called conversion factor. Now, if you go online and you search for the word conversion factor, you'll see some really complicated definitions, but I've got a really easy way, I think, of explaining what a conversion factor is. So here it is. Conversion factor is just asking the question, how much of one unit is there in another unit? So here are some examples of really common conversion factors. In 1 mile, there are 5,280 feet. Notice that a conversion factor is always going to be a number in a unit is equal to another number in another unit. A place where you're probably really used to using conversion factors is in cooking. So in cooking, we might use a conversion factor like 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. Now, the reason why the entire world uses the metric system is because they have really easy conversion factors. Their conversion factors almost always just include multiples of 10. So we might see something like 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. Okay, now that we know what a conversion factor is, we're going to write down a set of steps for how to actually do a unit conversion. All right, so first let's talk about step number 1. Step number 1 is really easy. For step number 1, all we have to do is we have to decide what units we're converting. So we're going to decide what our starting unit and our ending unit are, and then we'll write it down. Now, for step 2, what we're going to have to do is choose a conversion factor to get us from the old unit to the new unit. So if we were going to be converting from miles to feet, then we would choose that miles to feet conversion factor of 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. Now, for step 3, you are going to set up what we call train tracks. Now, train tracks are just a way of organizing our work. So train tracks end up looking something like this. I'll go ahead and draw it out. So our train tracks look like a cross. And we are always going to put our original number right in this section of the train tracks. Okay? So we put the original number there. Now that might seem a little bit confusing, but hopefully it all makes a little bit more sense once we actually do an example of it. Now for step 4 of our process, what you're going to do is you're going to put your conversion factor in the train tracks so the old units cancel out. So I copied in the train tracks from the previous problem, or from the previous number here. And so if the original number was going over here on the left, then the conversion factor actually goes in this section, and it goes here. Okay, so that's where the conversion factor goes. And a really big thing that we have to see is that for the units to cancel, they have to be on opposite sides. So, for example, if we're doing that that miles to feet example, and I start off in miles, we'll do that, miles. Then when I put my conversion factor in, miles has to be on the bottom and feet has to be on the top. Now I put numbers in as well, and you'll see when I do an example of how this will work. But what's nice is that if there's a miles on top and a miles on bottom, then those two cancel out, which will leave me with just feet at the end. Now, number 5 here is kind of the simplest. So once you have your train tracks all set up and you've canceled your units out, all you have to do is multiply the top and divide by everything on bottom, and you'll have your answer. Okay, so all of those notes so far might be really confusing. So let's do an example that I hopefully clears everything up for you. So for our example, we're going to do something really simple. We're going to convert 3 kilometers to meters. So that's my problem, convert 3 kilometers to meters. Let's follow the steps now. So step number 1 said we decide our starting and our ending unit. So let's do that real quick. And I'm just going to write as I go here, guys, all right? So step number 1 is just going to be starting and ending. So we know that we're going to start with kilometers, and we are going to change it into meters. Now, step number 2 says I need to choose a conversion factor. So I need one of those relationships. How many of this are in that? And I need it to have kilometers and meters. Okay, so step 2, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say, all right, I know this. I know that 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. And if you're ever unsure of a conversion factor, feel free to look it up on Google. Say so, just type in how many meters in a kilometer. All right, now step 3 and really step 4 is going to be to set up and complete my train tracks. So I'm going to draw my train tracks. And remember, I start off with my original number, and I'm going to put it down there in the top corner. So I'm going to put 3 kilometers. Okay, now what I do is I take my conversion factor, so that's step 3, and this is also step 4. I'm going to, I'm not to step 4 yet. So step 3 and 4, man, I don't know, I forget which step I'm on. I'm going to put this into here, but I have to do it in such a way that kilometers cancels out. So if I've got kilometers on top, okay, if kilometers are on top, then I'm also going to have to put kilometers on bottom, because that's what I want to cancel out. I'm trying to get rid of that and just leave meters. So if kilometers on bottom, then meters are on top. Now I just take the numbers from my conversion factor and I put them in. So the number that goes with kilometers is 1 kilometer. The number that goes with meters is 1,000 meters. So I'm going to put all that stuff in. Okay. Now look, I've got kilometers on bottom and top. So I'm going to cancel my kilometers out. Anything on top and bottom can cancel out. And the number I'm left with is going to be in meters. So now I just multiply top times top. And there's not really anything to divide by. So I get 3,000. 3 times 1,000 is 3,000. And divided by 1, it stays 3,000. So my answer is 3,000 meters. There are 3,000 meters in 3 kilometers. Okay, now we're going to do one last example that's a little bit trickier, and then I'm going to let you guys get on and move. Okay, so for this example, we're going to be a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to convert 20 kilometers per hour into meters per second. Now, for this one, guys, we're actually going to have to set up 2 different types of things, but it can all go on one set of train tracks. So I've got two conversions. I have to convert kilometers to meters, but I also have to convert hours to seconds. So when I choose my conversion factors, I'm going to have two different conversion factors. Now, the kilometers to meters, we just did that one. So we already know that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. Now, hours to seconds could be a little bit more difficult, but again, you could just look it up. And I would see that 1 hour is equal to 3,600 seconds. Okay, so now I'm going to set up my train tracks, and I'm just going to tell you guys right now, these train tracks are slightly more complicated because we are going to have two different chunks of the train tracks. So as usual, I'm going to start with my original number, and it's going to go over here on the left. So I'm going to have 20. Now here's what we got to see. Kilometers, because it's above this line right here. Do you guys see that? And it's above this line. All right. It goes above the line. Hours, because it is below this line, it goes down here below that line. All right, now I'm going to put in my conversion factors one at a time. So first I'm going to do this conversion factor. I'm going to make sure that my kilometers cancel out. So since I've got kilometers on top, I'm going to put them on bottom here. So my kilometers will cancel. Now I know that there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. That's for my conversion factor. Now I'm going to do my second conversion factor. 1 hour into 3,600 seconds. Now, hours is on bottom, okay? Which means that hours also needs to go on top so that it can cancel. So we'll put hours there, and then seconds will go down here. Now, for conversion factor, I still have to put 1 next to hours, and I have to put 3,600 next to seconds. Now I can cancel, so watch. Kilometers cancels with kilometers. Hours cancels with hours. And all we're going to have left is we're going to have meters per second. Now, I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to do 20 times 1,000 divided by 3,600. And when I multiply 20 times 1,000, that is going to give me, so here so 20 multiplied times 1,000, I get 20,000. And I'm going to take that 20,000 and I'm going to divide it by whatever's on the bottom. So what's on bottom is 3,600. So when I do 20,000 divided by 3,600, I end up with 5.56 meters per second. That's meters per second. And I've done it. That's my answer. Alright, so that completes this video. Sorry if it was a little bit long, but what I'd really like for you to do now is please go find me, okay? Find Mr. McSparron in class right now and tell me what you thought of the video. So, in what ways was it better than the videos you've done before? In what ways was it worse? And if you have a suggestion for me to make it better in the future, please, please, please let me know. I want to make these things as good as possible for you guys. Also, got to give a quick shout out to my man ETEP4, my original subscriber, been with me for 2 years. Hit me up with a text. Hopefully you watch this and get all the way to the end. Later.